It's debate night, but we're not at Milwaukee.
Mr. President, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Why aren't you at the Fox News debate tonight in Milwaukee?
Well, you know, a lot of people have been asking me that, and many people said you shouldn't do them, but you see the polls have come out, and I'm leading by 50 and 60 points. And some of them are at 1 and 0, 2, and I'm saying, do I sit there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it's going to be, and get harassed by people that shouldn't even be running for president? Should I be doing that? And a network that isn't particularly friendly to me, frankly. They were backing Ron DeSanctimonious like crazy, and now they've given up on him. I mean, it's a lost cause. It reminded me very much of 2016. You know, in 2016, I went through the same stuff and had to fight them all the way, and they became very friendly after I won, just about when I was winning. But I just felt it would be more appropriate not to do the debate. I don't think it's right to do it. If you're leading by 50, 60, I have one problem leading by 70 points, and I'm saying, why am I doing it? And I'm going to have 8 people, 10 people, whoever made the debate, I don't know how many it is, but I'm going to have all these people screaming at me, shouting questions at me, all of which I love answering, I love doing, but it doesn't make sense to do them. So I've taken a pass, as you probably noticed.
Well, I did. I'm grateful that you did. It's interesting, though, because you spent a lot of your career in television.
Yeah.
You had a top show in television on NBC. But you don't feel the need now running for president to do television, obviously. Do you think television is declining?
Well, according to a poll that I guess we just saw, it just came out where it's down like 30, 35%, but I think they were referring to cable. I think cable's down because it's lost credibility. MSNBC, or as they say, MSDNC, is so bad. It's so wrong what they write and what they do and what they say. It's fake news, as I said. I think I came up with that term. I hope I did, because it's a good one. It's not tough enough anymore. It's corrupt news. You know, really what you do is call corrupt news, but somehow that doesn't play as nicely. But it is corrupt news. So you have MSNBC and you have CNN, who's absolutely doing no ratings at all. I mean, they're dead. But they're doing none because they don't have credibility. They really don't have credibility. Fox is way down, as you know. And the good old days are long ago. I will say this, it could come back, but they just don't have a lot of credibility, Tucker. You know that perhaps better than anybody. I think it was a terrible move getting rid of you. You were number 1 on television, and all of a sudden we're doing this interview, but we'll get bigger ratings using this crazy forum that you're using than probably the debate or competition.
When you say there are people on stage who shouldn't be running for president, who do you mean?
Well, I don't want to really use names, but it wouldn't matter too much. A guy like, I call him Ada Hutchinson. It's Asa, but I call him Ada.
Why do you call him Ada?
You know, I could tell you, but I don't want to get myself in little trouble. But he's weak and pathetic, and he was, I never understood the guy, never knew him. He was the governor of Arkansas. Not a very popular guy. I don't know how but that state is such a great state. The people are so incredible in that state, and they love me and I love them. How does this guy get elected governor of Arkansas? But he's nasty always, and has been. A guy like Chris Christie, the guy left with a 8%, think of it, 8% approval rating in New Jersey. Now he's running for president. And he runs solely on the basis, oh, let's get Trump. He's like a savage maniac. He's like a lunatic. And that's all he talks about. His poll numbers are very, very low. He's about 2%.
What's he like? You know him well.
No, I've been friendly with him over the years, but I couldn't give him a job because I just never trusted him very much. I was just never one of those people that really trusted him. I never gave him a job, and that's one of the reasons he feels so hurt and so betrayed. And I understand that. I really do. I understand it, but I never gave him. You know, he wanted to be different things. He was looking at different elements of the administration, and we decided. I decided because I didn't want to do it. And now I'm glad I did, because you see, you know, we had some great people. I had great people. We'll have even better people if we do this, because now I know Washington. Before I didn't know Washington. But guys like Bill Barr were terrible. I mean, they were, I would say, Bushies. I say that with respect to the Bush family, but they were Bushies, and it doesn't work out for us.
It was clear, this is kind of far afield, but it was just interesting. I read Barr's account of his time. He wrote a book about it,
right?
His autobiography, and in it he lies about Jeffrey Epstein's death, clearly lies. Do you think Epstein killed himself sincerely?
I don't know. I will say that he was a fixture in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
I don't know what Barr said about it either. I have no idea what he said. What did he say? He killed himself, probably?
He said he killed himself and that they were going to do this investigation. They never did the investigation. It's never been
Yeah,
public.
well,
And they hid it, and like, why are they doing that?
He
And
didn't
clearly
do it.
Barr knew. But why would Bill Barr be covering up the death of Jeffrey Epstein?
Bill Barr didn't do an investigation on the election fraud either. Okay? He said he did, and he pretended he did, but he didn't. McSwain, the U.S. attorney in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, said Barr just wouldn't let him do it. It was crazy. Barr became so petrified, so frightened of being impeached. They were going to impeach him. I don't know if you remember it.
Yeah.
It's not a big moment in history. But they said, we're going to impeach. You know, they play a much rougher game, the left, the lunatics. And they were going to impeach Bill Barr, and he was petrified. Now, how do you not get impeached? Don't do any of this stuff. But he didn't do the job there. I don't know what he did with Epstein, but possibly he did.
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide. He had a life with, beautiful homes and beautiful everything, and he all of a sudden he's incarcerated and not doing very well. I would say that he did, but there are those people. There are many people. I think you're one of them, right? But a lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed.
You think so?
I think the closer you look, I'm not a conspiracy person at all. I believe everything I hear. But yeah, the closer you look into it, I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General, clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah,
and
he was.
why?
He was certainly. It wasn't well done. They had no cameras. They had no anything. Everybody was sleeping, and a case could be made. Look, I'm not going to get involved in it, but I can tell you, a case could be made either way. But it certainly wasn't the most well-run place.
So the reason I'm asking you is I'm looking at the trajectory since 2015 when you got into politics, for real, and then won. It started with protests against you, massive protests, organized protests by the left, and then it moved to impeachment twice,
Right.
and now indictment. I mean, the next stage is violence. Are you worried that they're going to try and kill you? Why wouldn't they try and kill you, honestly?
They're savage animals. They are people that are sick, really sick. You have great people in the Democrat Party. You have great people that are Democrats. Most of the people in our country are fantastic, and I'm representing everybody. I'm not just Republicans or conservatives. I represent everybody. I'm the president of everybody. But I've seen what they do. I've seen the lengths that they go to. When they make up the Russia, when that's exposed and they go down, and Barr should have gone after them, and other people should have gone after them. And they did very late, because the Durham report came out. It was fairly good. It could have been a lot tougher, I guess, but it was fairly good. But it explained how corrupt it was. I'll tell you who did a great job was the Inspector General Horowitz. He did a phenomenal report. You didn't have to go to Durham. He did it on Comey and on, I guess, McCabe and some others, and it was a vicious, it was basically a true report, how bad they are. But these people are sick people. These are people that I think they hate our country, if you want to know the truth. When you see open borders, when you see these policies that they have, and so many other things, it's so sad to see. We have a country that's very fragile right now. I've never seen, I will say, look, I ran in 16, which was 15, but I ran in 16, election in 16, and there was tremendous spirit. In 20, there was even more spirit. We got millions and millions more votes. It wasn't even a contest. People said, well, what do you think of 20? I said, we did much better. We did. You got to base it on the number of votes. We got many more votes in 20 than we did in 16. But the election was rigged. It was a rigged election. And with COVID, they used COVID to cheat in a lot of different things, and we have so much on it. It's like so easy. But we had judges that didn't want to look. We had people that didn't want to get involved. They could, he's a conspiracy theorist if you say anything about the election. But I have never seen spirit like there is right now. Even coming down here, just the people on the road that are just absolutely going crazy. And the reason is, I think they like me, and I know they love my policies. I hope they like me too. A lot of people say they don't like me, but they like my policies. I think they like me. But I have never seen spirit like it is right now. And the reason is because crooked Joe Biden is so bad. He's the worst president in the history of our country. I don't think he's going to make it to the gate, but you never know. But he's a corrupt person, so corrupt that I took the name off Hillary. I don't do two people at one time. I took the crooked Hillary and I retired the name. That was a good day for her. I bet she was very happy. And I used it for Joe because it's crooked Joe. But Joe is really...
But you don't think he's going to make it to November of 2020?
Well, I think he's worse mentally than he is physically. And physically, he's not exactly a triathlete or any kind of an athlete. You look at him, he can't walk to the helicopter. He walks, he can't lift his feet out of the grass. It's only 2 inches at the White House, right? It's not a lot. But you watch him and it looks like he's walking on toothpicks. So, and then you see him on the beach where he can't lift a chair. Those chairs are meant to be light, right? They're like 2 ounces. You lift them up. He can't lift the chair. He can't walk to the chair. And I don't know what they're doing with the beach. This beach is seeming to play a big role, but they love pictures of him on the beach. I think it looks terrible on the beach. It looks terrible on the beach.
Skinny legs.
Well, he can't walk through the sand. Sand is not that easy to walk through, but when he walks through it, he can't walk through the sand. And there's somebody in there that thinks he looks fabulous at the beach. I think he looks horrible at the beach. Plus, the beach doesn't represent what a president's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be working. He's supposed to be getting us out of that horrible, horrible war that we're very much involved in with Russia and Ukraine. You could do that. You could do that very easily. I believe you could do that very easily. I don't believe he could do it because he's just incompetent. But that's a war that should end immediately, not because of one side or the other, because hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. Can you imagine you're in an apartment house and rockets are going into that building and blowing it up and knocking it down? And why should anybody, human beings, whether they're Russian or Ukrainian or whatever they are, it's got to be stopped. And it can't be stopped very easily. It would have never started. If I were president, it would have never started.
So back to Biden, I'm interested. So you think he's failing? He obviously is failing. It's clear to everybody. But that would make Kamala Harris the candidate?
Well, not really. I guess they'd have maybe a free-for-all. A lot of people say she has to remain for certain reasons the candidate. She has to. I don't think that's true, actually. I don't think that other people would stand for it. She has some bad moments. Her moments are almost as bad as his. I think his are worse, actually.
Yeah. She seems pretty senile, too.
She speaks in rhyme. It's weird. It's weird. But she has bad moments. And
in rhyme? What do you...
Well, the way she talks, the bus will go here and then the bus will go there because that's what buses do. It's weird. The whole thing is weird. This is not a president of the United States future. And I think they probably have some kind of a primary and other people will get involved.
Newsom, right?
Could be. He's got along well with him, believe it or not. But could be him, could be somebody else. He's got a big load on his shoulders because you look at California, what's happened. But I don't know if the American people really, the people that vote for him, I don't even know if they care. You look at so many of the things that are going on, and people don't seem to be. In the old days, if you had a bad record, it meant a lot. Today, if you have a bad record, it doesn't really mean anything. He looks good. He's a nice-looking guy, speaks well. But Biden, every time you watch him talking, it's like he's walking on eggs. You're waiting for him to collapse. And he almost always does. And I got to know the leaders of all of the countries, essentially, but the big ones. And the bigger, the tougher the leader. It's like sort of, I guess maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. But I got to know President Xi of China and Putin and Kim Jong-un, North Korea. Did a great job with North Korea, kept us out of a nuclear war. We would have 40,000 dead soldiers right now. They'd drop a nuke right on top of the military base. But we have 40,000 soldiers over there. And I did great. I got along with him great. So that's a positive. The press said, he said nice things about Kim Jong-un. I also said horrible things at the beginning. Horrible enough that he wanted to talk. And we talked and we met in Singapore. Met actually twice. And we had unbelievable meetings. I know him very well. We were in great shape with them.
What do you think he and Xi and Putin think of Biden?
I think they can't believe it. I think they probably say this is some kind of a system. They had great respect for our country. They respected me. They had great respect for our country when I was there. Every one of them. Look, if you go to North Korea, you take a look at what happened. You know, the Olympics was dead. South Korea spent billions on the Olympics. Nobody was going to go. They didn't want to get blown up. They called me and they said, we are going to let the Olympics proceed. This is North Korea. I said, you should go into the Olympics. Put your athletes in. It wasn't like, you know, they were big on athletes because, you know.
Famine.
But they went in and they actually participated. And within about 2 days, the entire thing was sold out. And if it wasn't me, that would have never happened. But I got along very well with him, and it's a positive thing. He does have massive nuclear power, by the way. And if Hillary would have gotten in, or if the Obama thought process continued, it would have been a nuclear war, absolutely, with North Korea. He was expecting to go into a war, and it would have been a nuclear war.
So do you think the rest of the world looks on at Biden and thinks someone else has got to be running the government?
Well, somebody else has to be. I don't think he's capable of doing anything. Look, when I debated him, I said, how come, and this was in front of probably not a friend of yours, Chris Wallace, he was the moderator.
Not a friend.
I said, why is it he wants to be Mike, but he doesn't have the talent? It's one of those
bitchy little man.
He wanted to be his father, but he didn't have the talent of his father was great. His father,
little fussy man.
His father interviewed me in 60 Minutes. It was actually a 10. Can you believe it?
No, I totally. His father had talent, at least.
I may have been the only guy that he gave a good 60 Minutes. So he was rough.
Really?
His father was tough. He was great, though. He was great at what he did. But Chris Wallace was so upset. He was guarding this guy who wouldn't do a show, by the way. You know, he wouldn't do. I figured I didn't mind Chris Wallace because Biden wouldn't do a show, and it was very obvious. You know, he kept asking him and asking, but he wouldn't do the show. So I figured he's got to like me. But he came from a different planet. But remember when I asked the question, why is it that the mayor of Moscow's wife is allowed to give you $3.5 million? Don't forget, that was brought up, now it's brought up all the time, but that was brought up by me long before anyone ever heard of it. I said, the mayor of Moscow's wife giving you $3.5 million. What did you do to deserve $3.5 million? To Biden. And Chris Wallace said, this has nothing to do with the debate. I mean, he
got in the way of the question.
No, it was crazy. And I said, well, wait a minute, he got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife. Now, people forget that, but if you go back and take a look, you will see. And Chris Wallace didn't want me to ask that question. I said, I think it's a very appropriate question. It turned out to be much more appropriate than people thought.
Amazing. So do you have a preference in, assuming you're the Republican nominee and all goes as you plan it to go, do you have a preference in who you run against?
In many ways, I'd love to run against him because his record is so bad. You know, it's still horrible when you look at inflation and everything else, but others also have very bad records. I mean, California's a bad record, so, you know, should it be Gavin or should it be somebody else? When I look at San Francisco, what's happened to that incredible city? That was one of the greatest cities in the world just a short while ago, and now it's very sad when you look at it. Los Angeles, every city practically, all the Democrat-run cities. You know, Republican-run cities are doing very nicely because they arrest people when you have crimes. And they don't go after political candidates because they think it's good, you know. I mean, it's like been amazing. My poll numbers are the highest I've ever had. But because people understand it.
So can I just ask you, that gets back to my original question. So if the protest didn't work, you got elected anyway. Impeachment didn't work twice, obviously. Indictment is not working. Your poll numbers go up. When they raided Mar-a-Lago in August of last year, your numbers went up. They can indict you 20 times, and you're not gonna lose the Republican primary because of that.
Well, so it makes it look even more ridiculous. I mean, the 4 indictments, maybe there'll be more. I don't know. These people are crazy.
But they're counterproductive. So if you chart it out, it's an escalation, is what I'm saying. So what's next? After, you know, try to put you in prison for the rest of your life, that's not working. So, like, don't they have to kill you now?
I think the people of our country don't get enough credit for how smart they are. And I'm not sure I would have said this 10 years ago, but they get it. You know, they really get it. When somebody gets indicted, your poll numbers go down. When somebody gets indicted, you announce, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be leaving to spend time with my family and to fight for the rest of my life on this stuff. But you're out of politics. I got indicted 4 times. all trivia, nonsense, bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's horrible when you look and you look at what they're doing. The boxes hooks, I'm covered by the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do exactly that. He's not covered, and he's got 25 times the number of boxes. And he's got them stored in Chinatown. He's got them stored in a flimsy garage underneath his Corvette at Penn. And by the way, at Penn, he gets millions of dollars. China pays this guy millions of dollars. See, I think he's the most corrupt president we've ever had. And he also has the distinction of being the most incompetent. And I believe both. I mean, he's both incompetent and corrupt.
So
And
who
I
is running the
actually
government?
believe he's compromised because China knows so much about him. They know where the money comes from. They know where it is, who paid it, and they probably paid it. Well, they do pay Penn, and he gets $1 million. I think he takes $999,000 because keeps it a little bit under $1 million, like by $1. But he, in many ways, is a Manchurian candidate. We have a Manchurian candidate, and he's afraid to tell Russia to get out of Cuba. He's afraid to tell China to get out of Cuba. He's afraid. China now is building, think of this, China is building military installations in Cuba. The Cuban population of Miami is not too happy because they're never going to be able to go back. And you don't even hear about it. And the worst culprit is the press, the media, because normally, when I first heard that China's building installations in Cuba, and installations means military installations, okay, they said just some communication. They did that on the islands with Japan. They took the island, they started this massive construction, and they told everybody, including the Japanese have to be very careful, they told everybody that this is a housing development. They're going to build a housing development. And I said, how come the runway is 20,000 feet long? Private jets need 4,000 feet. They don't need 20,000 feet. The big ones need 20,000 feet. They don't even need 20. And I looked at the runway, I said, that's the largest runway ever built, both in width and length, for housing development. There's nobody that has a plane that big that you would have a runway that's
Why is
for
China
testing.
allowed to conduct imperialism in our hemisphere?
Well, yeah, and it's far beyond Cuba. It's all over South America.
Yeah, in the Caribbean.
So we built a thing called the Panama Canal. We lost 35,000 people to the mosquito, malaria.
Yeah.
We lost 35,000 people we lost 35,000 people because of the mosquito. Vicious. They had to build under nets. It was one of the true great wonders of the world. As he said, one of the 9 wonders of the world. No, it was one of the 7. This happened a little while ago. There's 9 wonders of the world. You could make 9 wonders. He would have been better off if he stuck with the 9 and just said, yeah, I think it's 9. But this is one of the true 7 wonders of the world. And you take a look at the Panama Canal. It was such an incredible engineering marvel. We sold it under Jimmy Carter. We sold it to Panama for $1. The following day, they quadrupled the amount of money the ships had to pay to get across. They didn't lose one ship. And now they've made it much bigger, and now they've widened it. They've doubled it, right? They've more than doubled it. And it's one of the most profitable things. Any time, it's just incredible, right? We gave it away for $1. China now controls it. They actually control the Panama Canal. They run it, they control it. And we shouldn't let that happen. And we can't let China be in Cuba. And they'll get out. If I'm president, they'll get out. Because I had a very good relationship with President Xi, but he respected this country, he respected me. And he'll get out. And we can't let them run the Panama Canal. We built the Panama Canal. Should have never been given to Panama. We should have had it. But we gave it for $1. Think of it. They quadrupled. In one day, they lifted the fees, which are, pretty big, for these massive ships to go through, right? Rather than going around the Cape and through all the tremendous storms, such beauty, when it's beautiful stuff. But you didn't want to get caught in those storms. Those were storms that wiped out the biggest ships. And we go through the Panama Canal, we built it, and we gave it away for $1. Think of that, how stupid are we? We have done the stupidest things in this country. And now we have a president that can't put 2 sentences together, can't speak, can't walk, can't talk. I don't think he gets to the Sardi gate, but these people do miracles. I mean, he ran out of his basement. And you got away with that one because of COVID, so he sort of got away with it. They cheated on the election. But you have people that are very smart, but they're fascists and they're radical left lunatics, and they're destroying our country with the all-electric cars and the windmills all over the place, which, by the way, don't work, and they're all, most of them made in China. For the most part, they're made in China. Germany a little bit, but China. But you look at what's happening to our country, even no voter ID. I mean, why don't they want voter ID? There's only one reason they don't want voter ID, because they want to cheat. Who doesn't want, you know, the Democrat convention, the last one, they had voter ID that was this big. It looked like a prison card, this big on their chest. You walked in, they had your picture, your this, your fingerprint, they had everything. The most incredible voter ID I've ever seen. That was to get into the Democrat National Convention. But to get into vote, if you buy groceries, if you buy practically anything now, you have ID on a card, credit cards or otherwise.
But don't you think it's racist to have to show your ID?
Well, they probably say that. They use anything not to show ID, because voter ID is pretty simple. And we could go back, and we should go back to all paper ballots, voter ID, same-day voting. You know, France did it. France had mail-in ballots, and it was terrible. Anytime you have mail-in ballots, you're going to have massive cheating on your elections. Anytime, not just the presidential election. Anytime you have.
Isn't that the whole point of them?
Yeah.
So you can
Oh,
cheat?
yeah, sure. That's their whole point. That's their whole point. They want to cheat. Yeah. They have to cheat because their policies are so bad that if they didn't cheat, they couldn't get elected. Who wants open borders? Who wants high taxes? Who wants high interest rates? Who wants to not be able to use a gas stove? Or have to drive an electric car, which, you know, you have a 4-hour drive, but the car only goes an hour and a half, so you have to charge it. The happiest moment for somebody in an electric car is the first 10 minutes. In other words, you get it charged, and now for 10 minutes. The unhappiest part is the next hour, because you're petrified that you're not going to be found another charger. People, I'm saying, if people, I'm not knocking electric cars, they're fine. They're fine. But if people want to buy a gasoline car or a hybrid, hybrids are pretty good actually, but they should be allowed to buy, they don't want to do any of this. So right now, California's in a big brownout because their grid is a disaster. The grid all over the country is sort of a disaster, but the grid in California. And yet, they want to have in a very short period of time millions and millions of cars going off that grid essentially. It doesn't work.
So plug your car into a grid that's failing.
You should be able to buy an electric car. You know, electric cars could be fun if you drive short distances and you want to have, you know, whatever, and you have plug-ins everywhere you go. But they could be fine. But you got to have gasoline cars. You got to have everything. Let people buy everything. Now there's the new thing is your heating systems in the house. They don't want you to have a modern-day heating system. They want you to use a heating system that will cost you at least $10,000 to buy and won't work very well. You know, none of the stuff works as well. One of the things I did with the EPA is you have states, many states, most of the states have so much water. You know, it comes out of heaven, right? The water pours down and you have it. It's there. It's got to go wherever it goes, into the oceans, whatever. It's not like a big problem. Now, in some states, they have a problem, you know, some desert areas and all. For that, it's okay. But they have sinks where no water comes out. You turn it on, no water comes out. No water comes out of the shower. No water is allowed to go into the washing machine for your dishes or for your clothing. And I avoided all of that.
Wait, they have sinks where no water comes out?
Sure, you have restrictors. When I say no water, very little water. You want to wash your hands, right?
Yeah.
And you've seen this, and you turn on the sink and it's very little. Well, or you want to wash your beautiful hair, right? And you're standing under a shower. Then the suds never go. The water comes out very slowly. I'm sure you've seen this. It usually takes place in new hotels and new homes.
Yeah, you take a drill and take the
They have
limiter out.
well, you can, but now they make it so you can't do that so easily. They have a restrictor. It's called a restrictor, and it restricts the water from coming out. So I ended all of that, and you have to see these. You let the water come out. You know what people do? They wash their hands like 5 times longer, or in the washing machine, they'll press for their, let's say the dishwasher. They'll press it. Then they'll press it about 7 or 8 times.
Yeah.
They'll end up using more water, and it still won't be very good. I met with the head of Whirlpool. They were practically going out of business during my administration, and they said to me, from Ohio, incredible, great state, I love Ohio. They were really doing badly because people were dumping washing machines all over, mostly from South Korea, but also from China. and he was explaining it's just a terrible situation. I said, let me ask you, how's the quality? He says, we're better, but they are good enough quality. But, you know, of course he's going to say that, but, you know, they are better. He said, but they don't allow us. They're dumping these machines. They're cutting us in half. They're killing us. And on top of it, the government won't let us use water in our machines. I mean, he shows me like a quarter of a bottle of water. That's supposed to be washing clothing. And I freed it all up, and I put tariffs on these countries that were selling and the machines coming into the country. And that company went from all the washing machine companies, they make washing machines, they make dryers, they make all of the different machines that do this kind of work, including dishwashers. And they went from a disaster area to being just thriving.
But can I ask,
they love me in that part of Ohio.
Well, I bet they do, but why should EPA, no one at EPA was elected by anybody,
Yeah.
why do they have the power to decide how much water your washing machine uses? Shouldn't Congress in a democracy get to vote on that?
Yeah, you could say that. They do things that are not very...
So how do you, that's my question, how do you, if you get elected again, go back to Washington, how do you keep the agencies under control? How do you keep FBI and CIA specifically under control?
The way you do it, like I fired Comey, that was a big deal. You know, a lot of people said, and I fired him very early. Somebody said, oh, I wish you would have fired him. There's a real question about firing him anyway. You understand, because, you know, when they have a 10-year term, there is a question. I fired Comey. That was a great thing. If I didn't fire Comey, maybe I wouldn't be talking to you, or I'd be talking to you about real estate or something else other than politics, right? That was a coup, in my opinion. That was a very sick deal. That was the insurance policy. You remember the insurance policy? Oh, she's going to win, darling. She's going to win. But just in case she doesn't, we have an insurance policy. An insurance policy was what they were doing. And we caught them with that. That was a very important tweet or whatever it was, text. It was a big deal. That was a big deal. The insurance policy. She's going to win 100 million to 1. That's not good odds. At least they gave me one, right? 100 million to 1. But just in case she doesn't win, we have an insurance policy. And everybody said, that's strange. That's strange. But we caught all of that because I fired Comey. Because when I fired Comey, it was like throwing a rock into a hornet's nest, into a nest of bees, and the place went crazy.
So when you were president, are you confident that you knew everything, say, CIA was doing around?
No, I'm not. It's a very interesting group of people. I had very good relationships, I thought. But I was a little surprised when I got out that, you know, things go on. Look, it's...
What were you surprised by?
I was surprised. I think it's some of the people. I was surprised that there was... I had a group of people. We killed many, using the CIA, I have to say this, very bad actors. We were very good at it. You look at Soleimani, you look at al-Baghdadi, bigger than Osama bin Laden. I mean, Osama bin Laden, but al-Baghdadi did ISIS, and he was rebuilding ISIS very strongly.
And that was the CIA that did that?
That was really us that did that.
Yeah.
That was really us that did that. And Soleimani was us that did that, not so much CIA. But we did some very good work with the CIA. But I started, you know, when I looked at the 51 intelligence agents saying that that was the laptop from hell was Russia disinformation, when I took a look at that, I said, that's a horrible thing. They knew it wasn't. They knew it was not. And by the way, you're talking about cheating in the election? McLaughlin and Fabrizio, great pollsters, they said a thing like that plus other things meant anywhere from 10 to 17% of the vote would change.
Whatever happened to Mike Pence? You've always been nice to Pence. I've never heard you criticize Pence. You've defended him in public many times. He's out there attacking you. What is that?
So Mike wants to run for president. You got to understand, in my opinion, Mike Pence had the absolute right to send the votes back to the legislatures. The Democrats and everybody said, you don't have the right. In other words, what I said, is he a human conveyor belt? I mean, if he finds fraud in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in any of these states, Arizona, he has to send them to Mitch McConnell, right? That's right, sir. Well, if he finds fraud, he has to? Yes, sir. I said, so he's a conveyor belt. Boom, put him in. I said, I don't agree with that. And we had some lawyers, not all, we had some lawyers that said, no, you do have the right to send them back to the legislatures to be rechecked. Because if you looked at what went on in Wisconsin, who, by the way, now agree with me, Wisconsin has been virtually, other than the fact they're not allowed to do anything statutorily, but Wisconsin has been, I mean, what they found is incredible. I mean, we won Wisconsin. But Mike Pence had the right, in my opinion, to send them back.
Do you ever talk to him now?
No, I haven't spoken to him in a long time. I was very disappointed in him. I didn't want to do what Thomas Jefferson did. Thomas Jefferson, it was Georgia. And it was, hear ye, the great state of Georgia is not capable or allowed to tabulate their votes. And Thomas Jefferson, who was the vice president, said, is Georgia sure that they cannot tabulate their votes? Georgia is sure. He didn't send them back and have them redo it. He said, we will keep the votes of the great state of Georgia for Thomas Jefferson and his president. I didn't ask him for that. Could have done that too, but I didn't. I thought that would be turmoil. I asked him to send them back to his legislature, to the legislatures, you know, in Wisconsin, let's say.
But why didn't he? I mean, you'd worked together for 4 years. You're the president. He's VP. You say you're aligned on everything.
I think he got very bad at this. I really did. Now, let me tell you what happened. I sat there with a few people. I think his lawyer was in the room too. His lawyer was very much against it. There were other lawyers that felt you could do it. It was one of those things that you probably, I think you could have. I think you can always do something if you see fraud or if you see problems. But it's very interesting. So after the election was over, the rhinos got together with the Democrats and they redid the election, so you couldn't do it anymore. So then I called the people. I said, so in other words, you're saying I was right, you could do it. Yes, you could do it. In other words, they took the Voting Act and they redid it so the vice president no longer has the power to do what I said he could do. So when that happened, I said, wow. So, and you know, you'd look some of these Democrats in the eye and they say, he has absolutely no right to do it. And immediately after the election, they met rhinos, could name them all, and Democrats. And they approved legislation that takes away the right of the vice president to do it. So I said, so you're saying I was right. The vice president did have the right to do it, and they said, yes, he did.
So if you're saying they stole it from you last time, why wouldn't they do the same this time?
Oh, well, they're trying. They're going to try. Yeah. And not only me. Look, DeSantis is out. I think he's gone. So he was at a level. People have figured him out. He's gone. But if somebody else got in, other than me, they'll go at him just as viciously as they did me. These people are sick. They will go after them. And a lot of people say they won't be able to hold up. I do get credit for holding up quite well, I must tell you. I think that's...
How do you do that? How do you get indicted, you know, every week and stay cheerful?
I think it's a lot easier because I'm so high in the polls, because it means the people get it. The people see it's a fraud. The people see it. Like this horrible district attorney from just a little while ago, from essentially Atlanta, it's Fulton County. She said, basically, I don't have any right to challenge an election. Well, what about Stacey Abrams? What about Hillary Clinton? What about all of these Democrats that are still challenging my election? The same people that are saying, he's challenging an election, challenged my election. And they did it with slates. They did it with all sorts of things. They were very bad about it. But basically, they're suing me and they're saying, you don't have any right to challenge it. If you challenge an election, we're going to indict you and put you in jail. So what they're doing is they've weaponized, and don't kid yourself, the DOJ and Biden and the whole group, they're watching all of this stuff. They love the local stuff, you know, the DA in Manhattan. Not only that, they put one of the DOJ top people into the Manhattan DA's office to run things. They don't even have a case against me. Not even a case. Everyone says, even the Democrats say, you can't bring these cases, you have no case. The Attorney General or the District Attorney, Fannie Willis, in Atlanta, she's getting killed. Basically, she's saying Trump doesn't have the right to criticize an election. But you've been around long enough now. You've seen many elections criticized. I mean, Hillary Clinton goes crazy. Every time she talks, she says, he's not the president. Jimmy Carter said, he's not the president. Well, I am the president. Hillary Clinton called me, by the way, at 3:02 in the morning to congratulate me the night of the election.
Did her voice crack?
Well, her voice was, it's very different, I will say. I won't get into that. But
What do you mean?
her voice was very different. Don't forget, they were all celebrating at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I came home and I said, I think we won. I felt we won because the rallies are so big. We'd go to Wisconsin, we'd go to Georgia, we'd go to different states. In Michigan, we'd have rallies. In Pennsylvania, we had 58,000 people in Butler. And I said, how are we losing this? How do you have a rally where you have from 50 to 100,000 people, many of them? I did 7 a day for a couple of days. That's a lot. That's a lot. These are big rallies too. And I didn't hold back. I didn't say, let's do abbreviations, right? But they challenged the stuff. Yeah. Hillary called me up and conceded. Now the word is that Obama said you have to do that. But she called up and totally conceded. But now, every time you see her on television, she's saying she's challenging the election.
Do you think?
So that would mean that she should be indicted, but that would mean also that Stacey Abrams in Georgia should be indicted because she still thinks she won the election for governor. She still thinks that. She's never recanted. And
do you think Stacey Abrams will be indicted for that?
No, of course not. She won't. Because the Democrats don't get indicted for things like that. They don't get impeached. No, it's a different thing. With that being said,
yes,
I had great support when they did impeachment hoax #1 and impeachment hoax #2. Jim Jordan, the House was fantastic. And actually the Senate was very good for me, other than, Mitch McConnell. I think if he had, it's too bad I endorsed him. He was begging, he was going to lose that race, and I endorsed him, and he ended up winning the race because of my endorsement. He was down, he was going to lose to Amy McGrath, $90 million in cash, all set to go. She was leading by 3. He was going down. I did him a favor, and then 3-4 months later, he really wanted to impeach me. He's a bad guy. But if you look at what's going on politically, it's so interesting. The level of loyalty is different in politics than it is in normal life, I will say. With that being said, I've had great loyalty also. But the House was fantastic. The Senate was very good. They overrode Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, in my opinion, was trying to get senators to impeach me, especially for the second one. And on the first one, he acted very, very slow. He should have gone much faster. But Mitch McConnell wanted to, and the senators went up to guys that are subservient to him because he gives money. He gives them money. He gives them a lot of money. He raises some money and he gives it to them, and therefore they do what he said. That's the only form of leadership he's got.
So last question, if you're elected president again, what's your number one priority? When you ran last time, you said, I will build a wall. This time, your bottom line top promise to the country.
So you can do numerous things at the same time.
Of course.
But let's say number 1 is a border. And taking hundreds of thousands of criminals that have been allowed into our country and getting them out and bringing them back to their country, Guatemala. By the way, not only the 4 countries that we think of as neighbors, all over the world. Last month, we had 149 countries represented. Think of it. We had 149 countries represented, Tucker, from places that many people never even heard of, coming into our country. And they're coming in from mental institutions, and they're coming in from prisons. They're emptying out their prisons all over South America. They're emptying out their mental institutions. Terrorists are pouring into our country. We have no idea. I had the strongest border in the history of our country, and I built almost 500 miles of wall. They like to say, oh, was it less? No. I built 500 miles. In fact, if you check with the authorities on the border, we built almost 500 miles of wall. And I had another 200 that I was going to build. It's like water. It seeks. And we're going to build another 200. We built it. It was all set to go. All they had to do was install it. It would have taken 3 weeks. And that's when I found out. I said, I think these people actually want open borders. The first thing I would do would be, I would seal up the border good and tight, except for people that want to come in legally.
Do you think we're moving towards civil war?
There's tremendous passion and there's tremendous love. January 6th was a very interesting day because they don't report it properly. I believe it was the largest crowd I've ever spoken before. And you know some of the crowds I've spoken before. And like July 4th on the mall, I think they had 1 million people there. But I think that the biggest crowd I've ever spoken before was on January 6th. And people that were in that crowd, a very, very small group of people, and we said patriotically and peacefully, peacefully and patriotically, right? Nobody ever says that. Go peacefully and patriotically. But people that were in that crowd that day, a very small group of people went down there, and then there are a lot of scenarios that we can talk about. But people in that crowd said it was the most beautiful day they've ever experienced. There was love in that. There was love and unity. I have never seen such spirit and such passion and such love. And I've also never seen simultaneously and from the same people such hatred of what they've done to our country.
So do you think it's possible that there's open conflict? We seem to be moving towards something.
I don't know, because I don't know what it, I can say this. There's a level of passion that I've never seen. There's a level of hatred that I've never seen, and that's probably a bad combination.
Donald Trump, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
That is a bad combination.
Bad combination. Thank you.
Hello everybody, this is Gerald Soletti, and it's Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023, 2023. And we have with us the man of men, person with a heart, a soul, a spirit, a true American spirit, but not only in mind and spirit, but in knowledge, that really knows the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and what our rights are, the rights we should have, the rights we've lost. And he keeps writing about it week after week, and we're honored to have him with us again this week, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Gerald. Always a pleasure, my friend.
You know, you have an article today. It's coming out tomorrow. And it's just so sad when I read this, and it breaks my heart. And the title of it's called Torture Comes Home to Roost. Hidden within some folks are the souls of saints. Hidden within others are the souls of beasts. You write, torture unleashes the beasts. Nothing is more destructive of human decency. Nothing is less fruitful in seeking truth. Nothing is more totalitarian, and nothing so undermines the government's own case as its use of torture. Oh, you're talking about those dirty commies over there in Russia and China, those people that torture people, whoever they want, for every reason? Why, those dirty commies? We should destroy them.
Of course, I'm talking about the American CIA and the American military torturing people at so-called black sites in Thailand, Afghanistan, Poland, and at the United States Naval Base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which came to a head last week when a military judge did the unthinkable to the military and suppressed confessions that were given during and after torture. This is the first time the government has suffered a setback of this magnitude in 20 years at Guantanamo Bay. Second thing that happened last week was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind of 9/11, as to whose guilt there is ample evidence, but who was tortured 183 times in 6 months. After his lawyers announced to the court that they were going to call his now retired CIA torturers to the witness stand to describe what they did to him, the prosecutor said, "You really want this stuff out there? We can't defend it. Lawyers are not ethically permitted to defend torture." So Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who arguably organized the murder of 3,000 Americans, escapes the death penalty and escapes the bowels of Florence, Colorado. That's the American government's supermax. Is now negotiating for a guilty plea with creature comforts in an above-ground jail. So you have two major setbacks. Why? Because the government shot itself in the foot by torturing. It didn't need to torture Nashiri, the guy who allegedly bombed the USS Cole that killed 17,000 people. That's the confessions that were suppressed. And it didn't need to torture Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. But because it tortured both, in one case now they have no evidence out of his mouth with which to prosecute him. In the case of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, notwithstanding a mountain of evidence, literally a mountain of evidence, they're afraid to prosecute him because they don't want the American government to be exposed to what it really is. So Joe Biden, and this is not Biden's fault, this just happened on his watch. The torture occurred on George W.'s watch. Joe Biden has authorized plea negotiations between the government and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Did you see either of those on the front page of the New York Times or on Fox News?
No. Nothing. Now, this Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, you say he was guilty?
Yes.
And the evidence shows that he's guilty for 9/11?
For orchestrating 9/11. Why did they have to torture him? Because Dick Cheney told them to torture. Because George Bush authorized it. Because Bush said none of you will be prosecuted for torture.
I thought Osama bin Laden was responsible for that.
Well, bin Laden's now dead, and this is the guy they have. So who the hell knows?
But I mean, look what happened. Bush, that little boy of nothing, a little clown, a little jerk, a daddy's boy, George W. Bush, who you say over here that in both cases the evidence of guilt discoverable without torture was substantial, yet the sickening lust for government-inflicted pain, fermented by the morally challenged and ethically obtuse President George W. Bush, materially weakened the government's cases.
Here's the way the law of torture works. And George Bush and Dick Cheney's legal advisors and torturers either forgot this or didn't know it. Except, funny, law students know this in the first year of law school. So if somebody's being tortured and he says to the torturers, "I did it," and then they stop the torture, and a month later he says, "I did it," both statements are excludable. Neither statement is usable. These jerks thought that because inflicting this pain they would get some of these guys to repeat it after the pain stopped. The courts still don't admit it. So nothing that these people said, no matter what they did to them, is admissible in the case against them. So by torturing them, the government weakened its own case against them because of George Bush and Dick Cheney's bloodlust and boasting about how rough we could be once we caught these people.
But this is the George Bush that said we got to invade Afghanistan because we got to get that guy Osama bin Laden, quote, dead or alive.
Correct. And this is the same George Bush who, in an unguarded moment, said, "Well, we have to get Saddam Hussein because, quote, he tried to kill my daddy," close quote. Which is true. He did try and kill President George H.W. Bush. That's hardly a reason for invading the country. A sickened individual who added trillions to debt, who slaughtered close to 1 million people in the two wars, who boasted about the Patriot Act assaulting our civil liberties, arguably the worst president in the post-World War II era.
You know, life changed so dramatically with George W. Bush and the beginning of the war on terror. I used to love to travel. Now I hate it. Everything has changed. We didn't have a homeland security back then. You didn't get felt up when you went to the airport. The whole thing has changed. A little clown boy of nothing. And these are the people that are running and ruining our country. And what you just said about him, how many people did he murder?
Well, close to 1 million people died between the Afghan war. We were there for 20 years. We accomplished nothing but destroying our society. And the invasion of Iraq, which we effectively destroyed. Close to 1 million human beings died. Not Americans. Only about 6,000 or 7,000 Americans died.
So people get angry at me because they don't like my language. They don't like when I get angry. Why don't you calm down, Salenti, and stop calling these people these names that you call them, because you are being, we don't like your language. Oh yeah, and you don't like my attitude, but you bend over and suck the crap spewing out of the mouth of these murderers. Oh, and they're elevated by the media. Oh yeah. Oh, why don't you buy some of little Georgie Bush's paintings? You know, this is disgusting what's happened to this country. And what you write here, you know, about, you know, one of my lines is, I'm tired. Oh, first of all, you said that the black sites, you called them, right?
Yes.
That's being racist. How dare you call them black sites? Let's really get stupid about this. So let's staying on the stupid level. I'm sick and tired of hearing this crap that if only women were in charge, there would be no war. And you write about this woman in the CIA about torture.
Gina Haspel, nicknamed by her colleagues, not her victims, by her colleagues, Bloody Gina, who gloried in the torture, who personally supervised the torture of al-Nashiri, and who wrote about it in graphic detail, which was inadvertently revealed by a super honest FBI agent who didn't know what she was doing, I guess, inadvertently revealed this stuff in open court. And that's how we all got our hands on it. And she eventually became the director of the CIA under Donald Trump.
Yeah. You write over here. After nearly drowning and severely beating him, the guy that you wrote about this, repeatedly, locking him in a coffin and raping him for months, Bloody Gina's team suspended Nashiri by his wrists, secured behind his back until his arms were nearly pulled out of his shoulder sockets. This is America. Those dirty Russians, what they're doing over there in Ukraine. Oh yeah, nobody talks about America. Oh, in the Trends Journal this week, we write about what's going on in Libya, how the place is now destroyed, and what's going on over there. Brought to you, oh, again, if only women were in charge, Hillary Clinton, Samantha Power, and Susan Rice.
Right.
And Obama, the Nobel Peace and Crap Prize.
About Madeleine Albright, the deaths of 500,000 children was worth it.
Yep.
Remember when she said that?
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot about Victoria Nuland.
Ah.
Could you find a better lover of murder than her?
The orchestrator of the 2004 coup in Ukraine.
2014.
14, correct. Coup.
Yeah, here it is, all in your Trends Journal. an article written back then in 2014 by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts about Victoria Nuland, and just to back up what you just said, Washington concluded that Russia needed to be confronted with or distracted by problems that would leave the Russian government less confident or able to counter Washington's aggression elsewhere. You ready? Ukraine presented the perfect opportunity for Washington to advance its hegemonic agenda. This is written by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. In a speech at the National Press Club last December, meaning December 2013, Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland boasted that Washington had invested $5 billion in non-governmental organizations, NGOs, in Ukraine. The purpose of the NGOs, you ready, is to teach democracy. And they overthrew the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych. Brought to you by Victoria Nuland, that was passing out cookies and cakes with that little clown boy that was the ambassador, Jeffrey Pyatt. And she's caught on the phone with Pyatt saying F you to the EU. She used the actual word, the F word. Right. We're going to put Yatsen, that little clown Yatsenyuk, after they overthrew, when they were going to overthrow Yanukovych. And they said we're going to do it before the Russians could do anything. But this is only information that people have no idea about. But again, I'm sick and tired of this, I'm sick and tired of race, creed, and color being the agenda that people put on things for people's crimes when it's everybody. It's not a race, creed, or color. It's not black, white, women, men. There's good and bad and evil in all of them. But what they always want to do, again, if only women were in charge. What a bunch of crap that is. And talking about what a bunch of crap that is going on, you said torture, no matter the goal, is the most tyrannical government overreach imaginable. It presumes that there are no natural rights or moral standards. It utterly negates the personhood of the victim. It reveals that there's no end to what the government can do and get away with. It is expressly prohibited by the Constitution and federal laws. Yeah. What the government can do and get away with. The government does whatever it wants and gets away with it. Look at the murder. How come they haven't brought up Bush and Cheney and Obama for their war crimes and Clinton?
Well, Bush has actually been indicted by the EU, and he can't travel to Europe because there is no statute of limitations on war crimes. Spanish court has actually indicted him for the invasion of Iraq. Who knows where that will go? But there rarely is justice. All of these people have killed. Donald Trump killed. Barack Obama killed. They all killed without declarations of war. They all killed people that were not engaged in acts of violence. Bush's was probably the worst because of the huge and massive invasions, military invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq. But no, these people are never punished. Madeleine Albright went to her grave comfortable and confident in repeating the monstrosities that she uttered about the value of the slaughter of innocents. I mean, Bill Clinton famously bombed a pharmaceutical factory within hours of his public interrogation before a grand jury in order to get the public's attention off the interrogation of the grand jury. And people got killed. Obviously, people were working in the factory in Kosovo, but nobody gets punished for that.
No, that's not torture. That's not torture. Yeah. No, it's every time, again, as I say, every time Clinton got caught with his pants down, it was bombs away over Baghdad.
Right.
I mean, these are facts. I'm not making this up. And again, what are we doing in Cuba? You're talking about Guantanamo. What the hell are we doing down there? It's not our country.
Well, we had a 99-year lease negotiated during the Teddy Roosevelt years, and we refused to leave. So the Supreme Court, I mean, it wasn't an application to leave. The Bush administration argued that it wasn't the United States, it was Cuba, and therefore the Constitution didn't apply. They made this argument 5 times. They lost it all 5 times. The Supreme Court, what are you kidding? You've been there for more than 100 years. You own the real estate there. The U.S. military is there. Wherever you go and stay permanently, the Constitution goes with you. So all those jerks that gave Bush and Cheney the advice, go to Cuba. It's not the United States. You can kill, you can torture. The Constitution doesn't apply. And best of all, those pesky federal judges won't bother you. All wrong, all bad advice, all would flunk Constitutional Law 101 in the first year of law school if they had made statements like that on an exam.
And this is what the country's declined into. You know,
Correct.
you talk about Obama, you know, I call him the Nobel Peace and Crap Prize winner. Yeah, this is a cover that one of the Freedom article, this article about the United States overthrow of the government of Yanukovych in 2014. You know, this is the guy that lied his way into office as the peace candidate. You know, again, in talking about peace, look what's going on in Ukraine. What's your latest updates? You talked to McGregor and others, Scott Douglas McGregor, former colonel, and he really knows a lot about what's going on the inside. What's your latest updates on what's going on in Ukraine?
Ukraine is losing terribly. The kill ratio is 7-1, meaning for every 1 Russian soldier killed, 7 Ukrainian soldiers are killed. The population of Russia is 110 million. The population of Ukraine 10 years ago was 42 million. It's now 22 million. So do the math. They can't last much longer. And why do they keep losing battles? They're being told how to fight the war by armchair generals in Brussels, otherwise known as bureaucrats in NATO. You want our aid, we'll tell you how to fight the war. Tell us how to fight the war. We're getting decimated following what you're telling us how to do. It's only a matter of time before President Zelensky flees to his townhouse in Paris or his villa in Miami, or is killed, or the soldiers just put down their arms and say, forget it, we're not going into this meat grinder anymore, and the Ukrainian generals will agree with them. It's only a matter of time. Russia has built 3 lines of defense along southeastern Ukraine. The Ukrainian offensive hasn't even reached, much less reached, the first of those 3 lines. Ukraine has absolutely no air power, and it is the most mined country in the world. Every single objective indication of defeat is pointing towards defeat. Every single one.
Well, back in...
Oh, and I forgot. Joe Biden just asked for another $28 billion. The conservative, the Freedom Caucus, mainly libertarian Republicans in the House, have said no way. So what is Kevin McCarthy, the Republican Speaker of the House, going to do? With Democratic votes to give him the $28 billion.
As the country,
He's wasted $113 billion already. There's no off ramp. There's no way out ramp. A month ago, he said Putin has lost already. Last weekend, Jake Sullivan, his national security advisor, said, "Can't handicap the war. We can't predict the outcome." So either Jake is not listening to his boss, Joe didn't know what he was saying, or they've changed their minds. Pick your poison.
you mean Jake Sullivan, who looks like the great-grandson of Goebbels, that little clown?
Yes, it sounds like the great-grandson of Goebbels.
Yeah. And there's the clown boy that was saying they were going to defeat the Russians, don't forget.
Yes.
Yeah. And by the way, when they're now, from just what I'm hearing today, it's more bombs away. They're sending more drones into Moscow, more bombings in Crimea. So the more that they, as I see it, the more that Ukraine keeps hitting into Russia, the more Russia's going to ramp up the war against Ukraine.
Correct. believe it or not, Putin does not want to kill people. He does not want to govern Ukraine. He just wants NATO, the NATO mindset, and the NATO weapons the hell out of Ukraine. Just like the Chinese entered into a treaty with the Mexicans, they want Chinese weapons out of Mexico. Same principle.
Yep. And when we're looking at this money going there, screw the people over in Maui. The hell with you. Here's a couple of bucks. We're gonna send I think it's like 130 billion to go fight and give aid to Ukraine. But the hell with you people down there. You don't mean anything. And look at our rotted infrastructure. And the reason what happened in Maui is that the third world electric supply we have. How come you go to Europe, you don't see telephone poles all over the cities. Everything's buried underground.
Well, the Europeans have a much better sense of aesthetics, and now they have much better engineering.
Yep. Judge, thanks so much for being on, and thank you for all that you do in the true American spirit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's an honor to be on with you, and we'll see you next week.
It's a pleasure, Joe. Thank you. All the best to you.
Oh yeah, no, that's just the war campaign assholes. They do that kind of thing.
I said, hail the chat, hail brethren. Hail the chat, good morning, Pat and Gat, how are you doing? And a big hail to the mods and to the chat. Hail.
Yeah, good morning everyone. Hail the chat. We got people in the chat dancing. We have birds and animals enjoying the music to open up the show. So, glad we're here, one and all. We're all beasts. We're all beasts of God.
Beasts of God, beasts of burden, more like, that I've been watching. I was going through TikTok, flipping through, sliding through so many people. Like, my whole feed is full of Canadians complaining, people complaining. There's a lot of bad news out there, but at the same time, there's good news too, right? There is good news as well. That's right. There's some great news out there. I'm going to show you a little image over here. There's a little bit of good news for you. Okay, take a look at that. We got one of our favorite pharmaceutical companies, and they're not doing so great. What is that?
I wonder why.
Minus 28% year to date in their stock price. Hey, that's just what happens, but sometimes other people's pain can be our pleasure. But then you wonder why we're hearing this, round and round that this stuff might be coming back. All I got to say is I'm just going to laugh. I don't think I'm going to get angry. I think I'm just going to loll. If anybody tries to make me, let's say, cover myself up, that I was watching this, somehow I fell into this Islamic YouTube shorts kind of hole. And before you knew it, I started hearing about this guy. He's telling me how to have multiple wives, and he's like how to balance and juggle your life. And I'm watching this, and I became entranced with like this mentality. It was like the Andrew Tate of Islam. It was absolutely incredible.
Wow.
That's the internet for you. You know what I mean? 1 minute you could be on TikTok and you're seeing all these Canadians saying, "Man, I can't take it anymore. I can't live like this. Things are so expensive. Everything's busted, broken." And then next minute you're on YouTube Shorts and you're in this Islamic weird hole, and you're transfixed because it's so weird. So I guess that's how we all ended up here together, isn't it? Kind of, we just ended up from
something like that. Yeah,
a little bit like that. Okay, so you've heard of street shitters, right? Of course, that is my heritage, and I just want to say that. Welcome to moon shitting. That's right, moon shitters. All right. What do we have over here?
This is from the BBC, and it says Chandrayaan-3 India makes historic landing near moon's south pole. Wow. Okay. So India has gone to the moon. You got Indians on the moon now.
That's right.
First thing they do is take a squat. You know.
Papa squat. That's the first thing you do when you get to the brave new world. You get to space. Is you got to take a dump. I don't know about you, but before right before I get on the internet, it's inevitable. You know what I mean, Pan? It is inevitable that I'm just gonna
Right?
Yeah,
And the moon is no different. You know, and probably even more so. Did they have to go?
I only got one question. How come Indians can figure out how to get to the moon, but they can't figure out how to use deodorant? What is that? Let's take a look here.
India can solve a lot of its problems just by using deodorant.
One of y'all wrote this.
Wow.
India, the billion people, the billion
a
person country.
that has political turmoil in so many aspects, could solve all of its problems with deodorant.
Well, yeah. Who thinks Indians smell? Right?
Everybody, raise your arms.
Everybody.
You gonna smell everyone? Whoever makes the face is low key.
All right, so you can get to the moon, but you can't figure out deodorant. Why is that, Pan? I don't understand what's going on over here. Why is that, brother?
You know, priorities, goals, I don't know, but they should have called it Chandrayaan number 2 instead of number 3.
Right, yeah, Chandrayaan 2, number 2, right? All right, we got Uncle Chico. He says, hello, everyone, from Leduc, Alberta. Big hail, brother. There you go, all the way from Leduc, Alberta. Cool. Now we know why war campaign is always late, says Mademoiselle Dong Lover. American Indians, she's like, gonna have to rename it to the Poon, right? No, it's not the moon shot, it's the moon shed. Excuse me. All right, let's see what else we got here. Did Ro go to the moon, says Johnny Boy. Not yet. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic, of course, that they made it there. That's so cool. BRICS Summit is going on also, and you got new countries joining that as well. I mean, I can show you that right here in a second. So BRICS Summit is going on. It is a joyous occasion, says Modi, who's he's the PM of India. And, I mean, why do Indians have this reputation? And what is the reason for that? What do you think it is? Why do they have that reputation for smelling, and yet they've been able to go to the moon? What is that? Is that just like a blind spot? What is that?
Well, I mean, it's got to be, you know, the part about the smelling, it's got to be, you know, what they eat. It's got to be, you know, partially at least their diet and maybe some hygiene issues going on there. But the moon, you know, I don't know. I mean, even dirt people can get to the moon now. It's incredible, you know. Maybe, you know, we need to shoot higher. You know, it's like everybody can get to the moon.
Yeah, anybody can get to the moon now. That's just where we're at. The moon is just basically like one dumping ground. That's just what it is now. The moon, you know, we thought it was made out of green cheese. They thought it was made out of curry. So that's it, you know, or maybe paneer. Paneer is an Indian cheese. Maybe that's what it is, why they want to get there. I think it's going to fill people up with pride. There's no doubt about it. At the same time, you know, man, I see so many of them gaming the system over here, and you know, of course, my background is from India, but I'm an Aryan, right? You know, which is the northern people of India. My uncle used to say that we are the, I don't know if I can say this word, but we are that, well, we're the bastard race. That's what my uncle used to say. And when when the Aryans met the Dravidians, and now here we are, 5,000 years later, you know, taking a dump on the moon, and that's progress. That really is just
achievement.
That's an achievement. Okay, so yeah, India's celebrating it. It's a victory cry. What would the victory cry be like when you went on the moon and you're from India? And what would it be?
I think it would be, thank you, come again.
I think so too. That's it, man. All right, what else we got over here? India's lunar triumph, okay, says The Economist. There's now another country capable of dramatic success in space. That is amazing. All right, now, I got a question for you. The BRICS countries coming up, all right, so BRICS, new countries joining BRICS. Is this part of that, all right? So if we look at here, the BRICS summit, the rest. All right, this is a big thing. Okay, new 6 countries joining up. Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Iran, among 6 countries invited to join the BRICS group. And I see here in Canada every day, you know, more tears. That's what I'm seeing here, more tears. I've spoken to people who are wondering, can they continue, right? The healthcare system totally taking a dump. Our leaders, including Pierre Poilievre, who's set to be, it looks like from the polls, who's probably going to be the next prime minister if Justin Trudeau ever quits, ever leaves, ever decides to just pull the plug and walk away, or maybe just take May. You know, and we don't want it to, of course, right?
No, not advocating that.
No, we're not advocating that. But who knows? These days, anybody can get it. Anybody can take it. That's just the way it is. You can fill out a form in Triple K, put a signature down, and that's it. It's quite easy to do. But hey, is there going to be any change? I don't know. I've got guys like this. Let me show you over here. Advocating. You're wondering why there's issues, right? And it's a little bit more serious. I think it's kind of done as a help. They're trying to help their own people coming here. But
if you want a government job in Canada, watch this. Okay, I'm leaving. Stop. What's the rush? Bro, I'm late and there's an opening for a government job. Wait, you don't need to go anywhere. But then how will I get the job? Simply go to this website and click Find Government Jobs. Then enter your desired salary and you will see thousands of vacancies. But bro, I'm a student. No problem. Just put the filter for student programs and you will find tens of opportunities that can...
All right, so there you go, telling each other how to get jobs, right? How to get government jobs. And you look at the stats over here. Let me show you your employment statistics, okay? Statistics Canada for government. All right, government. Watch this over here. Let me show you here. We can get labor statistics. You can find it up pretty quickly over here. And it's pretty sick to see when you look at it. You got employment numbers, okay, over here. So July 2023, key indicator 0% monthly change. Unemployment rate monthly change. Let's see if we can click here and drill down directly into it. I don't know if they're going to show you here the stats, but the real stats are, okay, so here we go. Employment gains, where are they? Showing some decreases, increasing, post-secondary students. Let me see over here, seasonally adjusted. And when you drill down in this, you're going to see pretty quickly that it is government growth. It truly is government growth. That is where most of the statistics, where most of the growth is. I'm going to see here, government jobs growth. Let's see here, Canada. Let's see if I can find this. This is amazing. All right, Financial Post. Here we go. That's a pretty good one. Public sector employment growth is badly distorting labor markets. From May 12, 2023, we need governments to focus more on encouraging private sector employment and less on coddling their own workers. We saw this PSAC happen here, that protest here. I saw this in Orleans myself, in Ottawa, and it was absolutely wild, okay? They were partying, they were dancing. So here we go. Let's see here. Public sector employment accounts for almost 20.9% of all jobs in Canada compared to 19.4% in 2014. The private sector pays the bills, so that can only mean a higher tax burden on private sector workers in business. Public sector jobs are clearly more secure. We do know that 100%. The pandemic's first 2 months, fully 22.5% of private sector employees lost their jobs, compared to only 6% in the public sector. Same thing happened in 2008 with that financial crisis that Canada, the housing market didn't really have that same fall that the U.S. had. But private sector employment fell by 4% during that time, whereas public sector employment actually rose by 1.2%. We're in this amazing position now where it's so hard to get a passport in the sense that the passport office is, they're slow. They can't run any kind of thing. We can't get, I can't get, let's say I need drugs for something. Okay, I don't mean street drugs. I mean, I need, for example, antibiotics. Okay, for whatever reason it is. Maybe I've got the, anyhow, right? Let's just say
the clap.
No, I don't have the clap. Okay,
well,
so
of course not. No, we're being hypothetical.
Right, exactly. Let's just say for a second here, for a thought experiment. Why don't you try this? Okay, try this at home. If you want to see this come out like for real, to see the effect on you, go to your doctor and try to say, hey, listen, I got the clap. Can I get some antibiotics? And see what the process is. Okay, and then report back here, and we will read your comments out. Okay, and see how quickly you can get antibiotics and what kind of hoops they make you jump through. I'm just saying. Okay, that's not from personal experience or anything. That's just literally. That's just a thought experiment. All right, here we go. We got Mr. Jordan Peterson, right, looking like the Joker over here. Let's take a look over here, or actually Harley Quinn.
Damn.
Yeah. First of all, Pan, how does he look? How does he strike you, brother?
Yeah, no, he kind of looks like Harley Quinn from that Batman. I think it was like '90s cartoon version of Harley Quinn.
Right.
You know, he's kind of got that style going on of dress.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to play him first with no sound, just to see his...
Hello, everyone.
Oh, sorry about that. Here we go. No sound, okay? Gad, if you could just kind of interpret his body language, is this a villain out of Gotham? What am I looking at?
Well, first of all, the 3 seconds of him talking sounded like he was like one of the Muppet Babies.
The Muppet Babies.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, this dude's ridiculous. Play it, though.
No, hold on a second here. I just want to get the mannerisms correct. You know what? Just give me a second here. Do I have a? No, I don't have any. Oh, I do. Hold on a sec. I'll be right back.
Is Ro gonna do some JBP and interpretive dance here? Is he gonna mime him? I don't know. Is he getting a volleyball? I don't know what's going on right now.
All right, what do you think, man?
What you got? Oh, okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me just cross my legs.
Sharp.
Just cross my legs. Ah, man, that's killing me.
Don't cross your legs like that.
No, hold on. I gotta try it. I gotta. Oh, damn.
No, don't do it like him. You'll crush your nads.
And they've canceled.
Uncomfortable.
They're canceling me, and they're. Oh, my nuts. Sorry.
Well, aren't they making him like do some communist reprogramming or something?
They are. No matter what you're feeling. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we joke about JBP. We call them benzos, all the time. Benzos Peterson. But it's not cool what they're doing to him.
It's not cool at all. Let's hear what he's got to say.
But how's he cross his legs like that?
I don't know.
Been awaiting a court decision in Canada with regards to the Ontario College of Psychologists' decision to require me to be re-educated in relationship to my social media use or to lose my license. The court ruled today in favor of the college. They claimed that I have the right to free speech in Canada, but subject to, apparently, whatever limitations the college wants to place on me, and by implication, every other professional in Canada.
I mean, this is, look, whatever you think of the guy, and I'm not a big fan, especially after the, kind of joining the crew, calling for, hey, just get into them shot, right? But this is absolutely, people saying, this is it, when you're scrolling through TikTok, the rest of people crying away, and you see that. I have a hard time feeling empathy anymore, right? Because I mean, the vast population in Canada is doing this, right? They're supporting all this kind of stuff. I don't think Canadians and Canada is going to change until the pain hits a certain level of pain. You know what I mean, Pan? Like that level of pain has got to come.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as an American, like, it's no secret to us that, you guys got a far left socialist government, and like you said earlier, we were talking before the show, the chickens are coming home to roost, so to speak.
Venezuela, the lineups, man, and I'd be talking to people, I don't want to, say too much, but let's just say that, I know people who are in a situation where they need medical aid or whatever it is, and it's just not possible to get. And I think that level has got to hit. It's got to hit higher. You guys see those government statistics, right? The government employment rate's got to fall when there's no more money in the public purse. Okay, or maybe the IMF. Who is it that strangulates all these countries? Yeah, it's the IMF, isn't it? They put all these restrictions on the countries, for austerity and all that kind of thing.
They have a lot of power over that. I mean, mostly they do it to the poorer African countries, but yeah, I mean, they still do it in the Western world as well. They determine, what your credit, like your country's credit score is, basically.
Right. So when the IMF comes knocking and we're knocked down a couple pegs, we're living in austerity, and I personally believe. Okay, now this sounds a little bit nuts, I'm sure, to some people. The liberals are there to tax and spend, run all these social programs, okay? They're going to do all that. You're going to get that phase change. You're going to get that blue party come in. You're going to get, Pierre Poilievre and the conservatives and the rest. And then they're going to tell you this. They're going to say, hey, you know what? We need austerity now because we got a crazy deficit. We got an absolute immense deficit, and we've got to reduce it. How we're going to reduce it? You're going to have to suffer, and that suffering is going to lead you to the next level. That suffering is necessary to go through that pain, and then you're going to get that shift again. 8 years, 10 years, 7 years, 6 years, who knows? And you get that same shift again. You get back to liberals in power, and it's been going on and on and on and on. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a historian, okay, but I do live in my mother's house. And I think that gives me a little bit of credibility with that theory. What do you think, Kat? Does that make sense, or am I kind of barking up the wrong tree?
Well, you know a little bit about suffering. Let's put it that way.
Do I? I don't know.
Living with mom? Yeah. You're just telling me like how it was awkward, right? You were stuck alone with your mom in the house. You actually had to talk to her. It was weird, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that sucked.
Actually, a really bad experience happened to me, and that made me very upset. My mother went to the grocery store, okay, and a fellow followed her out. All right, literally followed her out. She had to go back to security and ask security to escort her back to her car. And it was very upsetting for me. I'm still, this. I don't know.
Do they know who it was, or
no,
what he looked like, or like the complexion of the individual?
Well, he was of a black-skinned orientation. I think that's how you say it correctly, black-skinned orientation. The question
Black-skinned.
Black-skinned, exactly.
He was a black-skinned.
Yeah, he was. The thing is that, and I just think, man, and you can't be there all at once, you know what I mean? You can't be everywhere at once. And this is part of the reason that I'm a big fan of, like I hate to say this, but I'm a big fan of being armed. This is the reason, okay? Because I know my mother, had she been armed at that point, she would have been in a much better position because I can't be there all the time. And I'm going to show you a little bit of, I was going to show you some stuff over here with Pierre Polyev and Trudeau, but I'm going to show you this instead. This is a great win for people out there, okay? So take a look at this if you'd be so kind, Mr. Pan.
Okay, this is Catherine McDonald on Twitter X, and she says, my story from Global News tonight on the murder charge being dropped against Ali Mian. The exclusive details about the Crown Prosecutor's case outlined at the bail hearing, including how many shots were allegedly fired and what the armed intruders were carrying.
All right, so to give you some background, you got Milton, Ontario. This is north of Toronto. He's at home with his mother, right? I'm going to just pull up the first article over here. He's at home with his mother, and this is Castle Doctrine, right? This is where I'm like, man, you got to be. I'm telling you right now. I mean, I guess I've been resisting it. I don't think I've been resisting it. It's just one of those things. I got to get more informed about it, about my gun rights and that kind of thing. But when I saw this, it made me think, man, I got to get my PAL, right, which is your, I get your Privateer Association license. I don't know. You can just basically carry a weapon, or at least you can have weapons at home, and it's really, for protection and that kind of thing. And I might actually take up hunting too. But this guy over here, he's at home with his mother, and this hits me home because my mother was accosted basically. And man, had she had one of those little Saturday night specials in her purse, I think it would have gone a totally different way, right? I mean, luckily there's nothing that happened, and I really got to control myself with this because man, it makes me really, really mad, extremely mad. But let's take a look at this. So here he is. Okay, so an intruder comes in. All right, so let me see here if I can give it to you. So Ali Mian, right, it's an Arabian fellow who lives in the home with his mother, confronted the suspects. This is an actual...
He loves his mom too.
He loves his mom too. You got an armed intruder came in. Now, a couple of fellows came into this place. All right, they come into his house in Milton, and he shot him. That's what he did. He shot him. The fellow he shot was named Alexander Morso Leacock of Toronto. So let's just, I'll just show you this over here, what he looks like. This is the guy over here. All right.
He light-skinned, brother.
Yeah, I think this is the guy. Let me just double check here. Oops. No, I don't want to do that. I want to get it off. But they've actually password protected it. All right, but there you go. That's the fellow. Looks like it. All right. And, they come in, a group of these guys come in, and he shoots one of the guys. Right? They come in with a light-colored Dodge Charger with a sunroof and black wheels. They come into the place. His lawyer says intention is not to kill the intruder, only shot at him once. Okay, let's see here. So as a condition, now he was living with his grandmother. The sureties, the bail was set to $130K. Now people didn't know what happened here because they didn't know what was going to happen because he got charged with second-degree murder. Let's see the video. Keep watching.
Well, Halton Regional Police have charged 22-year-old Ali Mian of Milton with one count of second-degree murder. Now, it's in relation to an alleged break-and-enter that happened inside this home where Mian lives with his mother.
Okay, so they come in, a group of these guys come into his house. There's a home invasion. His mother's there, and they actually beat his mother. He turns around and he's armed, and he shoots one of them. That person dies. All right. Now that was, it was what's going to happen. The guy's charged with second-degree murder. Right. So okay, the lawyer for Ali Mian said his client is a registered firearm owner who was acting in self-defense. Mian's mom, who he lives with, was also at home at the time she was actually beaten. Okay. His intention, is saying here, was not to kill the suspect. Now this is a sort of positive news, I think, because the charges were dropped. Right? They were totally dropped.
This is a photograph obtained by Global News showing Ali Mian on Sunday with his lawyer Jag Verk after learning the murder charge he was facing was about to be dropped. On Monday morning in a Milton courtroom, the Crown announced the charge of second-degree murder was being withdrawn, given there was no reasonable prospect of a conviction.
He's ecstatic. He's very happy.
Yeah, he is happy. That's the lawyer right there. I mean, this right here, at least, now you can see all the bad news coming, but at least, hey, to some degree, the court systems are working, I think, right? We need some stronger laws around this, we really do, because the guy shouldn't have even been charged, I think, right? If somebody comes in, if a group of fellows come into your house and you got your mom with you, and they beat your mother, well, I don't care, they just come into your house, I think, right, as self-defense, my opinion, is that you should shoot on sight.
Well, yeah, if you can't defend yourself, I mean, what is going on? And even here in the States, there's some wonky laws where if you harm the home intruder, you could be sued at least, and maybe even in some states, criminal charges. Yeah, it's messed up. Yeah, the law, it's very state to state here, but some of the laws are not in favor of the homeowner in these situations at times.
When I saw this, though, right, I'm looking at this, I thought this was very important, and actually that kind of cemented my decision to get PAL, right? A
nice.
Yeah, it did. It really did. Because I'm thinking, you know what? I think it's important. That's just my opinion. I think it's important. I want to be able to defend my family. I want to be able to, and what is it? They said, God made man, but what is it? Colt made man equal. Right, that's it. Isn't that something like that? I think that's an American saying. That's American philosophy.
Yeah. Old school.
That's it, eh? Cat? That's a line.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me take a look over here. We got the chat. Hell, the chat. Let's see here. Karen says he shouldn't even waste court time. I agree completely. He should be given a medal, says I got 6 strings. Yes, Ken Paisley says different results for different ethnicities. Hey, that's a valid fact. There's no doubt about that too, right? We're seeing a lot of. We saw that in Rotherham, right? Rotherham. I don't know how you say the word, but there's a city over there in Britain, the UK, in England, that was they didn't want to prosecute a bunch of people who were actually running rape gangs because they were afraid. The police were afraid of being called racist. Okay, and this went on for years and years and years, and this is just it's absolutely sickening stuff. But that right there is an issue everywhere in the West when people are afraid to be called a racist. I think it means nothing now. It means nothing because, real racism is, put it this way, there's always going to be prejudice at some level, but institutional racism is not really something that exists because you're able to be whatever you want to be. That's what I teach my kids. You're able to be whatever you want to be. And, like when that black fellow accosted my mother, that black fellow, he wanted to be anyhow, okay. So that's just what it is. I like this. I like seeing this, and I'm surprised too because this is a young fellow and he was armed in his home. I think that's good, great. That's great. Let me see here if we can get a little bit.
Including he surrendered his firearms license and guns. Now that there will be no trial, we can report the Crown's case as outlined in the bail hearing. The 5 intruders were allegedly masked and armed, carrying zip ties and ropes. 2 of the intruders physically harmed Ali Mian's mother, and 8 shots were fired from Ali Mian's semi-automatic rifle. The 21-year-old suspect was found in Ali Mian's mother's bathroom. He took 5 shots to his body, and on the floor, police found a loaded 9mm handgun. The Crown.
There you go. Yeah, it sounds to me like they deserved it. You know what I mean? That's what it sounds to me like. Let's see what else we got. Victims being victimized by the state, says Don Boulay. Hail. That's right. Yeah, for the state. We got Oliver Scarlett Mackenzie. Bro, never get your RPAL. Just get the normal long gun PAL. Too much scrutiny with an RPAL. Okay, you know what? That's actually being an issue for me because there's a lot of misinformation and I don't know what's true and I got to do the research. So I'd love it if people who really are in the know tell me about what's actually correct, and I got to do my own research as well. But put it this way, I have heard, right, that I don't know to what level this is true, okay, but the fact is that I don't want to allow the government, any agents at all, to be able to do warrantless searches of my house to maintain the proper storage and use of my firearms. Okay, that's the only thing.
You know what I mean? Because you might say some illegal words on the internet or an illegal phrase, and then someone will snitch on you, and they'll come and they'll take your gun.
Yeah, that's the issue here. So that's the only thing. I don't want to open myself up to any government agents entering my domain, my domicile, my mother's home, my castle. Okay. So that is, you know what they say. That's an old saying, right? A man's mom's home is his castle. All right, so let's see. Right, you heard that before. Okay, there we go.
Of course.
Yeah, unknown last name says just leave the city. Yeah, imagine thinking you can break into one's home and not get shot, right? So it's easy.
Right. I'm
exactly.
glad the charges were dropped against the guy because, I mean, come on. He's protecting his mom.
Absolutely insane to me. The guy was actually, she was hurt. All right, moving on. I got something here for you, Pan. This is really interesting because I think you're in the know for this. Be so kind, brother.
Okay, so this is from Dale Stark on X Twitter. It says, the old-time loggers knew exactly why field fires are out of control every summer. Back when the USFS ran large-scale timber sales before the spotted owl hoax, logging companies maintained roads and manned fire watch towers. They protected their assets. Clear cuts provide fire breaks so wildfires were easily contained. Now access roads are not maintained, and in many cases they are purposely destroyed in the name of conservation. The resulting destruction is entirely predictable. What's the solution? The same thing that worked in the past. Open the floodgates for timber sales on federal land. P&W mills will reemerge. Thousands of high-paying jobs will be created, and the system will come back into balance. Or we can just continue blaming climate change or sea change and enjoying lung cancer. Palmindar!
Come on, man. You can't do that on television, okay? There's certain things you
can't say that on YouTube.
Okay, you know what I'm saying? Did you hear that? Listen to that smack. All right?
I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear that? Hold on a second here. Right to the... All right, how about that? All right, come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
I'm just reading, YouTube. I'm just reading.
No, reading is not an excuse. Reading is not an excuse, and I do not want to hear any critical thinking right now.
No critical thinking, that's for sure.
Okay, how about this, man? The spotted owl. You heard about this over there where you are?
I haven't actually.
Okay.
But I'm sure I know what it is, but we can't say. Can't say.
What about beetles? You hear about beetles whereabouts you are, right? Because you're in the PNW, you're in Oregon, all right? And
yeah, no, there are beetles.
It's like, you know what it's like? I feel like being on YouTube sometimes and trying to express my true emotions. It's like trying to tell a woman that I love her, but I don't know how to talk to women. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I just can't. It's hard sometimes, you know. That's
it's
really
painful, and you can't say what you want to say.
You can't always say what you want to say. You know what I mean?
You can't say the spotted owl HOAX.
No,
you can't say that.
No, don't you dare right now. Don't you dare right now.
You can't say that.
Don't
and you
say
can't
that.
say you know what it is either.
No, you can't say what it is.
Because I do.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I can't say.
We can't say that. All right. So here we go. We got this guy McLovin, and he says.
He says, a forestry guy said to me that excess timber can either be carried out, i.e. logging, or burned out. Your choice.
What do you think of that, Pat?
I'm thinking you should carry it out and make use of it.
Okay, I got one more for you over here.
Okay, this fella says, he says, my pop was a forest fighter in California after World War II. He predicted all of this would happen in 30 or 40 years in 1986. Because of the stupid hippie laws that even prevented clearing deadfalls, which the native people of California did for thousands of years before Jerry Brown showed up.
What do you think of that, brother?
Yeah, I mean, his dad predicted it, you know.
Deadfalls, man. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone that owns property out here, you know, and wants to log it has to deal with environmental restrictions, you know, distances. So one of the main ones is you can't cut any trees that are in proximity to any type of like running water. So you got to show the government that you're not doing that. And it's basically the government telling you what you can and can't do with your own land, and it's an issue. So, you know, I'm always for cutting wood, you know.
Yeah, I'm always in favor of
and clear cuts are great. People say, no, don't clear cut.
Why are
clear
they
cuts are great. You know what? It grows back. And there are laws to ensure that you replant. And if you're a business, a logging business, and you want to keep your business, you will replant, you know, and happily, because you want to log it again down the line.
Well, there you go, right? It's actually in your best interest, right? It's an incentive for you. That's how you guys operate, right? It's an incentive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we got the best, you know, we got the best cutters, we got the best people that come and replant afterwards. So
you got the best
it's the way
trees.
to do it.
Yeah, you got
the best trees. Absolutely.
Best trees. All right, here we go. We got Salty Walty says.
Salty knows what's going on. Okay. So Salty says, been a cutter for 40 plus years in Northwest Oregon. Used to be on mostly state and fed ground. After the owl, most of the mills acquired large holdings. Rarely a fire on private ground. ODF ground management is decent, but USFSF property is a tinderbox anymore. They don't care.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, so they're saying they won't log it, I think, because, you know, they got to protect these owls or other regulations, but it's actually a fire hazard now, I think is what he's saying.
Interesting. Yeah, I just thought you'd be, you know what I mean? This is right up your alley, and there's so many issues here. There have been people caught for arson, there's no doubt about it. The media is making it out like this is due to excess emissions, okay, incredible emissions, right, that they say that are life-changing. That's what they're saying, and our political class is saying that too. But there's sort of this underlying forestry management thing going on, right? That forest has to be managed. Am I correct? I mean, you got to remember I'm a city slicker.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, no, you got to manage. You got to make sure that it's not a fire hazard, and that's why you do thinning. And, you know, clear cuts are great. You know, no fire hazard if you cut and then replant, you know. So
What's
you
thinning?
Absolutely have to manage it.
What's thinning?
Thinning is where you take out some of the smaller trees so that the larger ones can continue to grow. And it cuts down on the fire hazard as well, because you get these smaller trees that
Do you guys do that on your property?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So tell me, so I mean, what's a typical kind of management? How do you guys look at it in terms of like a 10-year management plan or a 25-year? What kind of scale, first of all, do you look at the forestry management of your own land?
Yeah, well, you see what parts need what the most. Like you say, okay, this part is getting way too thick, it's time to thin, and you just kind of take it piece by piece. You know, you log little areas at a time, generally, and just, you know, that's how we do it anyway.
Do you actively think about fire hazards?
Yeah, if you see stuff that is potentially a hazard, you definitely think about it. You know, you just got to go out in the woods and drive around, hike around, see what needs to be done, see what can be logged, see what's healthy, see what, you know, needs to go. So yeah, you got to be active with the management. Absolutely.
Interesting, really interesting. Pan, of course, comes from a logging family over there in PNW, Oregon. So that's just it's kind of neat, because it's so hard sometimes to make sense of all the media stuff. And I'll show you what the media is saying or what our politicians are saying over here. So we got Stephen Guilbeault, and we got this guy Terry Glavin. He says,
okay, so Terry Glavin says, since 2001, China's coal-fired greenhouse gas output has doubled and tripled. Energy GHGs from the rest of the industrialized world flatline. So we sell China coal, ban plastic straws, and if you don't like the carbon tax, you're a, quote, arsonist.
Right, okay. So here we go. We've got the National Post saying that Stephen Guilbeault, of course, he was an environmental activist. He was arrested for that. I'll just show you that picture just if you want to see. Okay, here we go. This is him arrested. Let's see here. He's in an orange jumpsuit. There it is. Okay, so that's a great image of him. I love that. I love his little smile over here.
Wow.
Yeah, he looks like that guy. What's his name there? Manson, I think. Right? That's how he reminds me. Reminds me of.
Right?
Yeah.
It looks like a villain, in a movie. Like,
Is everybody
it's like a shot from a movie.
Yeah, is everybody a villain? Are all of our people are villains? Okay, here we go.
Yes.
Yes. All right, so Stephen Guilbeault goes to China and burns his sea credibilities.
We're not saying that word.
I'm not saying that word anymore. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you there's AI. They're transcribing everything. Watching. They're watching. They're watching.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it.
Watching. When I tell my kids to make me coffee, they're watching me. All right, China's greenhouse gas outputs have doubled and tripled while emissions from the rest of the industrialized world have flatlined since '01. Okay, so this is an article from yesterday, I did 18 hours ago. It's no wonder that Canadians are among the most skeptical people in the world when it comes to confidence in their government to deal with these changes. All right, so this was the finding of a survey from Ipsos this year. Record-breaking wildfires. Will it change much? Not necessarily. All right, so let's take a look over here. Let's go down. You want cynicism. All right, and we're not going to get into all this Chinese stuff. We all know that there has been investigations that have not really yielded a whole lot, right? There hasn't been any changes into the Chinese election stuff going on, so I'm not going to say the next word either. But you know what I mean, Pan? I'm just...
Yes. Yeah, no, it's a dance. It's a real dance with terms of service.
I'm dancing. Dancing, okay?
Right? Trying to dance, but the rhythm is so wonky.
Okay. Coal. Ottawa approved $3.49 billion in coal and coal product shipments to China last year. So I think it's the Vancouver port. I think that was where I was reading the amount of coal shipments. Let me just do a quick search here. All right, but 3.4 billion in coal. I think it's Vancouver port coal, right? Let me just see here. Yeah, this is it. I read this before, so it's all lodged in the corner of my mind. The dirty secret of coal exports from the port of Vancouver. Let's see if I can get some numbers over here. In 2017, the port of Vancouver exported more than 36 million tons of coal. To put this into perspective, this port ships more coal than the legendary American Coal Center of Norfolk, Virginia, which exported 31.5 million tons that same year. The Port of Vancouver also handles more than double the amount that is produced in all of the coal mines in Mexico in a single year. Okay, good enough for us. Good enough for our uses. All right, so there you go. Massive amounts of coal or the Mexico. That's amazing. Ottawa approved 3.49, which is way more than just that one coal from this specific port, Vancouver, in 2017, 36 million tons. All right, well, those are tons. This is the value. So those are two different things. We'll make it clear. 36 million tons, $3.49 billion. I don't know how that relates, but we can do research if you want to. But let's just move on. Ottawa approved $3.49 billion in coal and coal product shipments to China last year. This is the key part right over here, okay? This is what's going to give you, like, maybe a boner, or maybe it's going to make... Yeah, right? China's energy-related outputs, emissions, surpasses that of the United States, Japan, and Europe combined, thanks mainly to coal. China burns more coal than the rest of the world combined. And China is ramping up its coal production because coal is the bedrock of Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh's, energy security policy. So yes, we should, now this is published in the National Post. I'm amazed to see this, but there you go. So yes, we should engage, in quotes, with China, but subsidizing and accommodating Beijing's global green potentials while preening about our bike lanes and bans on plastic straws isn't the way to do it. It just breeds skepticism and cynicism, and worse. It's almost
what
like...
What would worse be? That would be anti-Asian sentiment.
That would, I don't know what that would be, okay? But it's not going to be pretty, right? People are not trusting the government. They don't trust what they're told from the media. And why? It's because people are not... You can do basic searches on the internet, and then you start to find this information out, and then your head starts to spin, and you start to say, am I cuckoo? Am I crazy? No, I'm actually not. But these people are lying to me. That's what it is. Stop selling coal to China and see what happens, says Angry Canadian. Bomb Pearl. China has all the factories now, hence all the pollution. Then we buy from China. Almost everything we buy is made in China. True. We've got Peter Biker, an unaccountable, inexhaustible resource. Carbon equals money. What a concept. Right? And then Karen says we are net zero. We got Helen who says not allowed to use coal where I am. My electrical bill so far has increased by at least 127%. That might be because of certain investment firms. Let's start with black and end with rock. What else we got over here?
Yo, what's up, Christian? How you doing, man? Hope you're doing well, dude.
Maggie says the coal comes in through White Rock from the U.S. in a train to Surrey. Then it's shipped from there. Oh, interesting. Okay. Huh. Okay, I got a question for you. What kind of mask are you going to wear if there is a return to mandates, man? What are you thinking?
Probably a Batman mask.
Gat, what about you, bro? What kind of mask are you thinking to wear this time around?
Probably one of those right there.
One of
Bank
these?
robber. Yeah. Yeah, because they do that again, I'm robbing banks. I'm just going to say it now.
I'm going to be Batman if they do this again.
Don't ask me, Pan. Let me rob the bank. You know?
No. We'll work out a deal.
Awesome.
Yeah, right. I mean, I just think that's probably the right kind of mask to wear under those circumstances. That's just my opinion. Not condoning robbing banks. I want to make it clear. It's illegal and wrong, and you should not rob banks.
Wait, I can't say that?
We do not. We do not.
You can. We just got to clarify.
We just got to clarify.
Well, I'm kidding. I'm not really going to rob a bank. It's a joke.
It's just a joke, man.
See, it's a joke, YouTube.
It's just a joke, man. Right? Okay. Definitely a ski mask. It's called a ski mask. Bad Egg Production. Yes. I'm going to put a leaf salad on my face to Sonia, right? A leaf salad. Right? I'll identify as masking, wearing, but not wearing, says Phoebe. Put your mask back on, Jump, says Klaus Schwab in the chat. Hey, got Klaus Schwab, Hale. Yeah, exactly. Briefs, pocket forward, says Scum. Hell, brother. Okay. All right. I'm going to show you something brand new over here. This is Toronto. Of course, Toronto's going through. Okay, so while we've got all these real problems, right? We've got people with these safe injection sites which are taking, drugs and I don't know what else, and people nodding off in all our cities. But the cities are in like these death throes of trying to figure out how they can outwoke one another, right? That's what's happening here. They're outwoking one another. This is a motion. That's right. This is a motion to change the name of a street specifically. All right. And what is this about? It's because Dundas Street, apparently, there's some kind of, I don't know, like there's some history here that people are not keen on, whatever it is. $8.6 million to rename Dundas Street because I don't know exactly. Something to do with, I don't know how this links to slavery, but I think there was a link made over here. Let's see what they're saying over here. All right, so Dundas Street naming change. What is this about? Let's see if we can get to the core of it. And I don't see it. It's just, what is the problem with that? Dundas Street rename. Okay, I want to see what it is. It's because, okay, so the Toronto City, this is from toronto.ca. Hold on 1 second, let me just, children, please behave.
Whoa.
Right. Please children behave. Okay, all right, just had to tell them nicely. Let's take a look over here. Renaming Dundas Street. So what is this about? What is the problem? What is Toronto City doing? Could it get any worse? All right, so there's an online petition in 2020 that was signed by close to 14,000 members of the public, called for Dundas Street to be renamed. Why? Okay, called for the street to be renamed because of Dundas's role in delaying the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade in the 1790s. But I mean, isn't Canada, didn't we have like an underground railroad to Canada? Isn't that what happened? I thought that Canada was like the place where the blacks would go to be free. Am I wrong?
Right.
I don't know. You get across the Ohio River, you don't have to go no further.
What do you
know what I
mean?
mean? Why you want to travel clear up to Canada? You're safe once you cross the Ohio River.
Is that
you know?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't never heard of Underground Railroad to Canada. That's new to me.
That's something you never heard of that? We're taught that over here, Underground
Oh.
Railroad. Yeah.
You guys had your own Harriet Tubmans?
You never heard of the Underground Rail? We weren't taught that.
Oh, it doesn't make any sense. You're free once you made it across the Ohio River. Why would you have to go clear to Canada? It makes no sense.
We were taught that we had underground railroads. That's what we were. Yeah, this is it.
Well, I could be wrong, but yeah, I've never heard of such a thing. Being American.
Okay, no, we were taught that basically Canada was the place to be if you wanted to be free. Right? Not really now anymore. I just want to let you know.
You don't have like have blacks in Canada. You have African immigrants. You don't really have blacks as we have blacks.
Well, I mean, I listened to Tupac when I was
Can I
growing
say
up.
blacks? Can I say the word blacks? I don't know.
Of course you can.
Yeah, well, I would actually prefer if you said watermelon people of watermelon. Right? But
Okay.
people
of watermelon.
People with a lot of watermelon. Okay, a lot of it. No, I mean, you know what? That's what we were taught. We were taught that Canada it was great for black people to come and to be free. That's what we were taught in school.
You know what I mean? Though?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point in like walking another 1,000 miles to Canada or 800 miles to Canada? I don't. You know, I'd want to stop walking.
I don't know,
Just
man.
saying.
Maybe you get the itch and you just keep walking. Anyways, that's what I was taught, so I don't know what this is about. Anyhow, they're saying that it was not until 1807 that the Slave Trade Act was enacted, which ended the slave trade in the British Empire. During this period, more than 500,000 more black people were enslaved in British
Okay.
territories.
This is pre Civil War. Okay, I get it now.
Oh yeah, 1807. So yeah, 1790s, delaying. I don't understand, man. I just don't get it. But anyhow, like at what point? I'll give you an example of what this is to me. Okay, it's like Rudyard Kipling. The guy was a great poet, writer, the rest. Was he a colonial? Yeah, obviously. The guy lived in India. What are you going to do about it now? I'm not going to read the poem If. I'm not going to enjoy that. I'm not going to enjoy being on Dundas Street. By the way, I had a friend of mine, and she worked for Toronto Public Health. Sorry, I think it's Toronto Food Health or something like that. It's like 15 years ago. And she used to tell me, don't eat anywhere from like Dundas something. There's a bunch of Chinese restaurants. She says that they were infested at that time. You know, they were totally infested with so many problems with rats and the rest. So she would give me the lowdown of where not to eat in Toronto. And I think I still kind of remember lodged in my brain Dundas. Anybody from Toronto, maybe that's correct. Maybe you know where the rat droppings are. But it just seems to me like this is, you got a name change over here, which is causing immense disruption. Meanwhile, people are not able to pay for basic stuff. That housing is off the charts. People are crying all the time, right? They're crying. They can't get health care. They don't have family doctors. But this is what the political class is doing. Now, if you think that's bad enough, right? You think, okay, name changes and this woke stuff, this is what they're concentrating on. Well, that's not the worst. That's not the worst of it, okay? You've heard of poutine. Poutine is a delicious food, okay? It's one of my favorite foods there is. But this is the business of Parliament. This is literally the business of Parliament. Poutine is the business of Parliament. This is put out by Kevin Vuong, all right, who's not a bad guy from what I understand. He's an independent, all right, but he's put out this this petition, and the petition simply is, this is the kind of stuff they're doing in Parliament. You know, I read this and I just think, what the? Here we go.
Okay, petition to the House of Commons in Parliament assembled. Whereas, poutine can be found in restaurants of all sizes and genres from coast to coast within Canada. No matter what gender, ethnic origin, creed, geographic region, community, culture, linguistic community, political party, or ideology Canadians identify with, there are lovers of poutine in their midst. He can serve as a vehicle to bridge differences between us and unite Canadians in conversation over a dish we can generally agree is delicious. Maple syrup is not a dish, but it is an ingredient that can be used in gravy or a topping in some other variations of poutine. that have come to exist over the past 7 decades. Poutine was served in the at the March 10th, 2016 state dinner, and the U.S. president hosted Canada's prime minister for the first time in 19 years. Poutine is a quintessential Canadian comfort food.
Poutine is amazing, right? But let's get to this over here. So this is what they're doing in Parliament right now. What is this?
We, the underside, citizens and residents of Canada, who also identify as poutine enthusiasts and or lovers of poutine, call upon the House of Commons and Parliament assembled to ensure, through an act of Parliament, that the dish commonly known as poutine is hereby recognized and declared to be the national dish of Canada, while simultaneously honoring its origins in the province of Quebec. Official business, important stuff happening in Parliament.
This is not a joke. This is not a spoof website. This is the Parliament of Canada. I'm going to drop you the link right in the chat. Like this is this is real. Initiated by John Leslie from Toronto, Ontario. Original language of petition English. The history opened for signature June 1st, 2023, closed for signature on September 29th, so it's still in process. Member of Parliament Kevin Wong, 102 signatures, and here you go. This is what they're doing.
It seems silly, but I think the intentions are good. He's trying to create a little bit of nationalism here. Everyone can agree, that poutine is great. Poutine is Canadian. He's just trying to unite Canadians, I think.
I want to say a big thank you.
What step by step.
I want to say thank you to Blacklocks Reporter for breaking this news. They do a lot of great stuff, but they also, they put this out just to show. I think it's just to show what's going on here. Okay, so the national symbol, the beaver, was actually designated in 1975. And anyways, I just don't understand when we got real problems what people are doing. I just don't understand. Maybe I'm just a doofus, but that's where we are in Canada. Yes. And I love poutine. I want to make it clear, okay? I want to make it clear. And that right there is not a very good picture of poutine at all. This is a better one because it's got the cheese curds. All right, I want to make it clear. I don't want to offend anybody out there. I love poutine. I am an eater, and I love eating.
But you're not obese. You're just an eater.
I'm working on it. I'm not there yet. Okay. I love poutine. It's a delicious thing. It's just that should our parliament is this an official order of business? Why is time being wasted with renaming Dundas Street in Toronto? Talking about national dishes of poutine. What is going on here? You guys don't have real problems to solve? Maybe that's just what it is. You don't have real problems to solve. Well, let's take a look over here. We got True put on the hot seat. Okay, here it is. And listen to the first question and listen to how he answers it.
Crime, inflation, a shortage of housing. And looking at the polls...
Crime, inflation, and a shortage of housing. Right? That's what he says.
Crime, inflation, a shortage of housing. And looking at the polls, I'm wondering if you think that message is sticking. If you think there's a large number of Canadians who blame you, not for trying to solve their problems, but making them worse.
One thing we've heard right across the country is that Canadians are going through a tough time right now. Inflation has given them a big kick in the teeth over the past...
Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for being here, Christian. Thank you, Lord Cruz.
I just can't take it. I'm sorry.
We got to sign off at fucking Trudeau.
That's your answer, your attitudes and nonsense. I can't even play this stuff. It's nonsense. But it's quite clear to me that these people simply are not interested in solving problems because they've only made them worse and worse and worse. And that's why, to a certain degree, I don't think, or maybe to a large degree at this point, I don't think these politicians, any of them, are really here to help us. You've had Pierre Poilievre so many times being asked questions, right? How do we solve the housing crisis? How do we do that? And he keeps talking about building more houses, right? Meanwhile, we have tons of students, right, coming in, a lot of them Indian students, who are, just they're coming in mass amounts. And I was having a conversation with a fine fellow, Hail brother, and he was telling me, that we need people.
Thanks for being here, appreciate it.
It's great, it's better that students come and work, that they don't work, and I agree completely. It's better they do work. But at the same time, I think it's the amount of people. Do you know what I mean? It's the amount of people coming in, and then the gaming of the system, and that's really what gets me down. It makes me think, hey, listen, E.T. go home,
right.
It's the amount of people, right? It's between the refugees. These are real stats, right? 1 in 3 refugees, 10 years on, are still in the government dole. That's what they are. They're on welfare. And then you've got tons of international students, and we've seen them at the food banks teaching each other how to use the food banks and game the system. And that is really taking advantage of our good nature, right? It really is. It's taking advantage of my good nature, because I've got a great nature. People tell me.
Indeed.
You know what I'm saying? People tell me that I got a great nature. Well, sometimes they tell me I'm mean. But let's take a look over here, all right? We've got now, because the polls are doing so badly, we've got this consideration. Here we go, CBC News.
Yo, Gyges.
Okay, from CBC, they say the federal government is considering a cap on the number of international students to ease the pressure on the housing market, says the man now tasked with tackling Canada's housing crisis.
All right, so here we go. Oh, well, let's listen to this. Trudeau promises housing solutions, defends immigration numbers. This is going to be good.
Under pressure in the polls, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is promising solutions for Canadians who can't afford a home.
We know how difficult and how unattainable that seems for so many young people right across the country.
I'm not a young person. I want to move out of my mother's basement. Do you think I'll ever